Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of the Voices of Tech. Really pumped on the guest that we have today. One of the pioneers in AI, which we talk about in every episode. His name's Jim Barnebee. Jim, how you doing?
Doing good today.
Yeah.
Working like crazy and running a bunch of AIs. Like this for I've been waiting for tools like this for 20 years. So we're finally getting tools that can do some of the things that we've been trying to do in the industry for the last couple of decades.
I love it. I love it. And no, I mean, I wouldn't have my business if it weren't for the tools out there today. And so, Jim, for those other people listening who aren't familiar with you, could you give us a brief introduction?
Sure. So I started out as a developer, obviously,
Nice.
as a kid. I got my first professional development job at 15, and I've been working in it ever since. I went from being a developer in college, working with literally bit registers and mainframes. I
Nice.
wrote the first website my university had ever seen. Literally, it was a month after the specification for HTML came out.
Wow.
So that gives you an idea of where I was at that
Off to the
time.
races.
And then I started working in the industry and I went to a convention, and on the side room in the back, there was this guy named James Gosling who worked for a company called Sun.
Mhm.
And they had this code they used to run toasters, and they were
Really?
going to change it and make it an object-oriented language. Yeah, I mean, it was originally built to run a toaster. And they
Dang.
said, "Oh, well, it's OO, so why don't we just add to it and make it an OO language and see if people like it?" And so we were there. There's like 30 of us in this little room at 10 o'clock at night. And Gosling comes in. He says, "Anybody want to test this new thing we're doing? We call it Java." And about half of them went, "Yeah, okay, we'll try it." Right.
Yeah.
So I ended up as a beta tester for Java.
That's crazy.
And then I ended up writing Java code for the government and DARPA. And if you're not familiar with that, that's the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency,
Wow.
which is the coolest job I've ever had that almost killed me.
Second coolest.
No, it was great. I worked 121 hours in 1 week one time. We had cots in the lab. Nobody went home. I mean, literally, it was crazy. But in 3 years of working for DARPA, nobody said the word budget to me once.
Mm, I
Didn't
bet.
happen.
Yeah.
I said, I need X, and I got X. They weren't going
Yeah.
to give me any extra money for salary or anything. But if I said I needed, two mainframe servers sitting in the room tomorrow, I'd get them.
Wow.
Yes, it was
That's
a
crazy
pretty
response.
amazing. Yeah, it was. It was a great place to work. So after that, I was still doing Java commercially for banks and things like that. And then I ended up being an architect, Sun certified enterprise architect, doing Java
Mm,
architect. And I ended up helping write some of the rules for Java. So if you've ever used Java and you've ever used the rules specification in Java for a rules engine or anything like that, that's mine. I was on
nice.
the help create that specification.
Yeah.
And I went from Java to doing ontologies because I was trying to figure out a way to do massive heterogeneous data overlay mapping. So if you had 100 databases in 22 countries in 18 different formats, how do you query all that at once? Ontologies were the answer to that at that time. Still a really great answer to that problem. So I had to learn to do ontologies to add to my Java skills so I could solve that problem. And then I ended up working for a boutique ontology firm, actually building ontologies for businesses to solve those kinds of problems. From there, I read about this thing called Watson. And IBM was doing Watson, and it was going to beat everybody in the world at Jeopardy.
Yeah.
And so I got a hold of these guys who were doing it, the actual dev team of Watson and IBM. And I went in and talked to them, and I said, "Look, guys, I've been doing ontologies. You're using ontologies in this pipeline. I want to come do this, and here's what I can do." And so they
Yeah.
brought me in to work on Watson. So I worked on some of the first code for Watson in the original build.
That's
Uh,
crazy.
later, later on, they changed it from UEMA pipeline to neural networks, and that's not ontologies. So I went from writing the backend code for Watson to actually installing Watson and making it work in large-scale financial institutions worldwide. So as a senior enterprise architect for IBM, I would fly out, get a bank using Watson to help do all their processes and using AI in their backend systems.
Sheesh.
Get
It's a
that
lot of
built,
responsibility.
yeah, I'd hand it over to another architect. I'd do 5 or 6 of those at a time year round. So from there, I became a VP of AI and infrastructure and a CTO. And then I started my own little AI firm, and it is called Artificial Intelligence Made Easy. And that did that for a while and sold that company into another AI firm called Rot AI. And that's where we are today. So that's a
Nice.
pretty short intro.
Yeah. And you have quite the resume, Jim, and I love how it all kinda ties into to what you're doing now, and, I'm really grateful, Jim came super prepared for this podcast, and he actually had a presentation prepared for us today, and would love to see it and kinda understand your mission right now and also, what goes on inside of Jim's head.
Well, I'd be happy to. So I wrote this presentation for a business group and have given it to them, and it got good reviews, and people liked it. So hopefully this will be helpful.
Yeah,
We'll go over it pretty briefly, but I think there's a couple of things that people who are watching this podcast would get something useful out of.
yeah.
Specifically, how does a business figure out what AI they need and how to use it? So the problem is that everybody knows they want AI and nobody has a clue what it is or how to do it. Because frankly, most people started out with AI about a year, maybe two ago, and
Wow.
haven't been doing it for 20 plus years, so they make mistakes. Niels Bohr said the definition of an expert is anybody who's made all the mistakes in a very narrow field. Once you figured out every way not to do it, you figure out the way to make a light bulb.
There we go. I'm stealing that quote.
That's Niels Bohr and Thomas Edison. Feel free.
Nice.
I stole it from them. So this is the problem we have. Is a lot of everybody knows they need it, but nobody knows what it is or how to use it. So here's a few just basic terms that we can use in talking about AI. Large language models, model tuning, model context, retrieval augmented generation, fine tuning, and prompt engineering. These
Mhm.
are just terms, and hopefully, if anybody doesn't know these terms, I suggest just freezing your screen for a minute and reading through these.
Yeah.
But these are just basic terms that help understand what we're doing. Here's the thing as a business you want to do. Do not pick the tool first. Pick the problem first. Figure out what it is you're trying to automate, fix, make better. What is it you actually want to do? What is the business goal? Then look at all the factors around it, requirements, needs, integration capabilities, etc.
Mhm.
Then go pick your AI tool. But you can't just pick the tool and try to mash a use case onto it. You want to find
Yeah.
your use case first, figure out all the factors, and then select the right kinds of AI tools to use. So everybody thinks about AI and they think ChatGPT, which is
100%.
great. And I'm super glad that that's gotten commercial traction and that people are using it and loving it. But that's not all there is. There are different types of systems you can use and different types of AI. There are also different levels of AI. So first, let's talk through what the levels of AI are. There's LLM queries. That's ChatGPT. That's what everybody knows. You ask a question,
Yeah.
you get an answer. If you want to add 22 chained prompts that lead to the next one, right, whatever that is, any type of query response setup is an LLM query, one shot or multi shot. Workflows are where you put multiple agents connected to each other in a pipeline. You say, okay, this agent needs to do a job, then it's going to hand off to this agent, it's going to do another job, hand off to this agent, that's going to do another job, and then you'll finally get it back to me. It's like it shows here, OCR first, then translate, then send an email, then, those are all
It's a
different
long
agents.
process.
You just chain them together. The last category we have is agentic AI, agent to agent. This is a lot more complicated because it doesn't involve a human. We build an AI, we tell it what it's supposed to do, how it's supposed to do it, what it's supposed to talk to. And then we tell it, okay, when you do these things, learn from them.
Yeah.
Look at what you've done and determine if there's a way to do it better. Look at what tools are available to you as an AI and can you integrate those and can you do better with that? If you can't figure out what to do, is there another agent in the network somewhere that can do that? All
Precisely.
of those kinds of things are agentic and that it runs itself. So the biggest difference between the three levels are query response, kick off a workflow, do a bunch of stuff, get an answer back, or tell an AI agent what it's supposed to do and how, and then just cut it loose.
Mm,
So that's the difference between them. So
yeah.
when you pick an AI system, figure out which of these you actually need and don't over engineer. When I was working with when I was working with IBM and Watson, very often we'd go into these situations where you'd have a major financial institution and somebody in it says, "Oh, well, I want to automate this spreadsheet."
Yeah.
And we're just looking you don't want to use
Yeah,
Watson
what
for
does
that.
that even mean?
And they want to put automated formulas in their spreadsheets. Fantastic. And I'm like, that has nothing to do with natural language processing and intent resolution and actually creating an agent. It doesn't have anything to do with that. It's not even
Mm,
AI. It's just, straight formulation.
and Jim oh, no, no, keep going.
So what we always told those people was, look, you're going after a fly with a bazooka. You need a fly swatter, right?
Yeah, blow up the whole house.
Exactly. And you can you use a bazooka to take out a fly? Sure, but it's messy and wasteful.
Yeah, take out a lot of other flies too, so
Exactly. So what we tell them is you don't want to use Watson for this. You want to use, a basic functional setup.
yeah, fair
So
enough.
that's what I'm saying. Think about how much power you need from an AI after you figure out what AI you want to use.
And how often do you find this kind of maybe, kinda misalignment where companies have an idea that they need, say, agentic AI, and they need something far less capable?
Constantly.
Really? Why do you think that is?
Because people, and going back to this, people don't understand that there's three different levels. They use ChatGPT and they go, oh, that's an AI agent. Well, just do that. It's like, okay, but that's not what you're asking for. So find somebody who's an expert in AI. After you figure out what you want to do and what the constraints are, then go back to the previous one. After you figure out what you actually need to do and
Yeah,
what all the constraints are, then find somebody who actually understands AI tooling. And they can tell you which one of these types of agent configurations you need to use based on what the problem is and how you need to solve it. And if they're good, they'll tell you at some point, no, you don't want an you don't want any AI for that.
yeah,
You want to use a mathematical curve fit, or you want to use something else, but you don't want to use AI for that. Or they might tell you, hey, that is AI, but it's not generative AI.
yeah.
Generative AI is what ChatGPT is. And just as a word of warning, generative means it's making stuff up. When you see
Really
generative,
that vocabulary, I think everybody needed to be reminded of that.
yeah, it is not a search engine. It is not going to always tell you the truth. I can get ChatGPT to tell you that the moon is made out of green cheese with perfect certainty and absolute conviction.
And I would believe
I
it.
mean, doesn't mean it's true, but it will
Yeah,
tell you that. So, word to the wise: if it comes out of generative AI, check it before you use it.
okay.
But there's a bunch of different types. So here's generative and classification. Classification is let's rip stuff apart and figure out what bucket it goes into, right? That is not generating stuff. That is taking things apart. That is classifying data according to buckets. Different problem than generative, and therefore different type of AI that does it. Detection, detect fraudulent transactions, extraction from invoices, PDFs, things like that. Can you use LLMs in these systems? Absolutely. But you do not want to use generative AI in an extraction context. You can
Yeah,
use generative AI to communicate with your extraction AI, but you want to keep that extraction AI doing that specific thing because that's what it's built for.
makes sense.
Right? Recognition, translation. Again, these are very specific types of AIs. Can you use a standard ChatGPT interface onto a translation AI? Sure,
Mhm.
but it's not the actual translation AI. LLMs and generative are different from the other categories, and it's important to know, hey, I'm trying to solve a translation and extraction problem. I don't want to use ChatGPT for that. I'll put ChatGPT on as an interface, but I want to
Yeah,
use some specialized types of AIs for those particular things.
Okay.
Retrieval, embedding, segmentation, all different kinds of AIs. If somebody's really interested, you can go to places like the Google AI Model Garden, and you can see a whole bunch of different AI models that are not generative, that do fall into these other buckets.
Mhm.
So when you use any AI, it is super, super important to check it. Make sure
Step
that
1.
what you're getting out is what you expect.
Yeah.
This is why we have things like model drift, right? So if you release an AI application in the EU, you must commit to continuous monitoring of model drift.
Mhm.
Because if you start throwing in a lot of, say, biased data into your system, it can change how your model deals with biased data.
Yeah.
When you put in any query, any data, any information into a neural network type model, it changes the weights of how that data gets created or interpreted or extracted. So you need to make sure that those weights, once you get them locked in, and that's what you want, make sure it doesn't change too much over time because it can.
Yeah.
So that's why we have model drift and stuff like that. These are the stuff I have up here is pretty standard. These are things that most CEOs, most people working with AI are going to be concerned about. There's a lot to deal with in guardrails and compliance.
Oh, I bet.
My suggestion is if you are doing this and you are building a system, get somebody who knows these things, listen to them, make sure you're covered. If you're using a system, then you can pass through that risk. But FYI, places particularly like the EU AI Act, they can take, I think it's 4% of your gross or something. So if you have a company, you are a founder, you're a startup, a small business, be careful. If you are creating an AI app, make sure you're covering yourself on these kinds of regulations. So here's the kind of thing I'm talking about, why you should do it. This is what I was talking about, right? 30 million euros
That's
per brief.
insane. Yeah,
Yeah.
let me
So
just grab that out my back pocket, you know?
yeah, and hey, I'm just not doing my model drift. Okay, well that's a violation. You can get up to a $30 million euro fine for just not doing that guardrail,
Eesh.
right? And China has the same kind of thing, 5% of your annual revenue. So if you're a $1 billion company, guess what? You just took a hell of a hit to the bottom line because
Yeah.
you failed to do one guardrail.
That's in
Australia, 50 million. Yeah, it's the cost can be very, very high.
ugh,
That's about what I got in the presentation. I hope that's somewhat helpful.
no, absolutely. So I wanna know, how was what you're working with now different than what you were doing? 'Cause I mean, obviously, there is a big difference, right? But how is it what's different now as opposed to, 20, 25 years ago when you started?
I can give you a really good example. When we used to do Watson for places like big businesses,
Yeah.
cost a ton of money
Yeah.
because we had to build our own intent resolution systems. We basically had to build our own LM type system individually for each customer. You couldn't go out and just grab like a giant tuned model for a bank for, financial data. Couldn't do it. So Watson was that kind of system. It's an NLP system that processes data, works as an AI. We would have to go in and teach it everything, not just about the customer's bank, but about banking.
That's
So,
insane.
yeah,
You
it
really
took
had
a
to train
lot
that thing from
longer.
the ground up.
Yeah, and it took a lot longer because we were starting from scratch every time. So, the ability to be able to start with a foundation that you know has been tested and works at least semi well
Yeah.
is, yeah, that's a tremendous time saver. I mean, it used to be you could walk into this area to get something done decently for less than a quarter million bucks. And now people are using chat. Yeah, I mean, it was expensive. Think
Dang.
about it. You build, how long does it take to build an LLM, one of these major corporations?
Yeah,
Uh, some of the
how
good
long
ones are, months, right? You got people putting in data,
a
tuning data,
project, you're
training.
hiring a team to do it.
Right. Instead of that, imagine having to do all that yourself
Yeah. That's
every
insane.
time. Yeah,
That's
over and
insane.
over and over again. It was nuts.
So are you
So
pretty excited about the way things have changed?
I am thrilled. I am
Amazing.
absolutely thrilled. I have been wanting to get I've always been the person who said, "I want Star Trek."
Yeah.
I want to walk into any room and just tell the computer what I want and get it.
Mhm.
I've been working with that for 20 years. We're
Hey,
finally at the stage where we can start to do it.
yeah. And the
It's
way things have been grown, it's like a compound. At least with the way societies evolve around technology, it compounds and it compounds and it compounds. So, no, I definitely don't see that too far off in our future.
no, I'm doing everything I can to bring it along. I mean, back when we were doing Watson, again, this is an example, we hooked it into things like Google.
Mhm.
So you could, yeah, and that went through some tests, and I think a couple of banks actually deployed it, where you could
Wow,
talk to Google and have it go sign into your bank for you, check your bank, use your voice control, yeah, go through your
that is
accounts, all that kind
crazy
of stuff.
stuff.
But we had to build every single one individually from the ground
Yeah.
up. Now we can just say, okay, hey, I got an LLM. I'm going to hook this model. I'm going to hook this interface to it. Boom.
Bada boom, bada bing.
That didn't exist. You had to go build every single bit of that yourself. Now we can just take the pieces and plug them together. It's the difference between trying to build a car, right? And then just buy a car and change out the seat covers.
Yeah, to customize it.
That's the difference.
A beautiful time, and it's definitely exciting times, and, with what you're working on right now, Jim, what companies are you most excited to get in front of in the future, or what kind of companies?
When you say get in front of, do you mean talk to about the product or work with or
Yeah, work with in general, because obviously there's a level of passion behind what you do that, I mean, there's a level of expertise, skill, but I can definitely and I think the listeners can hear it too when you speak about AI, the passion behind your words, so, yeah, what companies are you most interested in working with going forward?
well, I do love what I do. Absolutely.
Mhm.
No questions. As far as the agentic AI development side is concerned, I like the agent protocol set that Google's put out.
Nice.
There are a couple of other competing ones that are coming out, but I like that one. I would say if you're going to get into development
Yeah.
or into creating your own AI applications, I would look at things like LangChain. I would look at things like the new agentic frameworks. I would look at some
Yeah.
of the new AI studios, right?
Mhm.
Um, Obviously, I would stick to things like Python, so you can control the environment better. I try to do everything in Docker just because I'm lazy. Well, I don't want to set up my environment more than once. I set it up in once, lock it in, call it a day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's that kind of stuff. I say, integrate AI and MCP tools with all your IDEs because you'll be able to work faster. So that's on the development side. On the commercial side, as a product builder and a company owner, our focus is on heavily regulated industries because those are the ones that need this kind of power and can't use it.
Yeah.
So when we did banking in with Watson, there's a lot of stuff you have to, a lot of regulations, a lot of
Mhm.
verifications, a lot of audits. How do you do that with something that's a black box?
Yeah.
Right. So being able to bring those kind of systems into those kind of environments, I think gives them an option they didn't have before. Because yeah, you can put ChatGPT in, but first time you get a financial audit, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
And
No,
that doesn't
absolutely.
count with like the government, right? So one of the industries that we're going after is what they call a SCIF, secure compartmentalized information facility. And
Okay.
it's this giant Faraday cage. That's what it is. It's a big giant Faraday cage. And no signals go in or out. And they put all of this super secret stuff in there, secret squirrel, can't go in there. And it's like, okay, you can see that book and you can see that book and you can only see page 217 of that one. And it's all in these giant paper folders. And they've got some IT in there, but it's very restricted and very difficult.
Yeah.
They don't have generative AI. They can't just go in and sit down and say, tell me about this. Because how are they going to get, here's 2 words of this 20-page thing you can actually see. Everything else has to be blacked out, right? So right now there's a very difficult time doing that, and that's one of the problems we're trying to solve is how do you, as a user, go into that kind of environment where you're only allowed to see very, very specific things and do a generalized query and get the information back that's accurate.
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, there's a in the particular system we're talking about for that kind of environment, you're talking about 60, 70 agents working together consistently.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah, no. And that's just the start, you know? Do you think there'll ever be a time where agents are building other agents without human?
absolutely. Absolutely. I sincerely hope so. I've actually got one of the projects is actually a system that does that. It works fairly well so far.
Wow.
Um, but it's a set of, again, the company has, and one of the products we use is a set of AI tools that we built that actually will help you create an agent. And it drops the time to do that about 80%.
That's
Yeah, because it
crazy.
starts out with an application conceptualization, runs that through about 3 dozen agents, and creates a basic application with a specific set of interfaces and stuff. Then you debug that application, make sure it does what you want as far as data processing et cetera is concerned. We run it through another tool. That second tool that we have adds 15 agentic interfaces and capabilities to that application. So all of the self-learning, the agent to agent, the MCP tools, the connections through everything, all interior databases, exterior monitoring flows for vector stores, all that stuff is
Yeah,
added on based on what the original conceptualization and data processing was.
yeah.
So you can do that. You have basically a setup, a debug, a setup, a debug, and then you launch. And so it speeds
Agents
things up.
building agents.
Yeah. Well,
That's
it's
beautiful.
scripts, it's agents and scripts that use agents and scripts back and
Yeah.
forth in order to build all of the pieces that then let you build an agent. It's
Wow.
think of it as, let's use a car analogy again, right? I'm going to
Love the card now.
go get a car. Okay, what kind of car do you want? I want, a small subcompact in it, right? So you give it the parameters and it goes and tells you, here's your Carvana search. Here's the 4 cars that we think would be good for you. And you can
Yeah,
go, okay,
exactly.
well, I like that one. I don't like that one. And I want that one, but the standard transmission, right?
Yeah.
And then it go back through a couple of times doing that through those, 30 agents and
Yeah.
work. And there's stuff like each agent will check its input and output and check the one before it and send it back. So you've got learning recursive loops all the way through, that sort of thing.
Wow. And
Then what
so
you get out of it is this basic thing to debug. And once that works, then you throw it through another set of agents that wraps it with all of this capability, debug that, launch it.
wow, that's crazy. And so you would have a better answer than most people on earth about this, but where do you see the future of AI going? And that's a very big question, but say, 10 years from now or so, and where do you see the role of humans in the workforce and in the world going? I mean, maybe that's a little bit too big, but definitely like how
You want
humans
the
run
good end?
everything.
You want the happy answer or the sad answer?
Let's start with the sad and end with the happy.
Well, I can make it real simple.
Yeah.
It's either Star Trek or Elysium. Those are your choices.
Yep. Yep.
Either, I mean, 80% of the productivity increase money that's come out of all of the computer stuff since 1985 or so, 80% of that cash has gone to the top 1%, which is why we see the wealth inequality we do now in the United
Yeah.
States. That's just how that works. Because they're the ones who set up the systems and went, look, I can sell books online, right?
Yep.
And everybody, oh, great. And they made a fortune.
Yeah.
Understandable. They grabbed that capability and sent it out to everybody and made a lot of money. The problem was that that money that they made didn't get pushed back down to the bottom at all, right? So it's all still concentrated at the top. So if we continue that process, what you get is Elysium. You get a very small group of people living in absolute luxury. Everybody else is completely destitute. The people at the top are using AI for everything all day long, and the people at the bottom maybe have ChatGPT. That's your scary, bad scenario.
But it's a possibility nonetheless.
The good scenario is the Star Trek angle, where we all go, look, we have all this incredible power. We can feed, clothe, and house the entire world's population on 3% of the world's GDP, which is actually a statistic,
Wow.
right? 3 cents on the dollar.
Yeah.
And we decide, okay, that's important. And we take the stuff that AI is making easier for us and we let everybody share in how that helps. We democratize the results of AI, not just the capability of using AI.
Wow.
If we can do that, then you'll still have people making tons and tons and tons and tons and ridiculous amounts of money, which is great. But you will also have everybody else living at a base level where they can sustain that economically. Keep
Yeah.
buying ChatGPT for $100 a month, right? So there's things like that. That's where I see the plus and minus. We're going to have the power. We're going to have the tools. The good side is everybody gets a shot at it, and we all do better, and the world is a happy kumbaya place. And the bad one is, the people who have all the money keep all the money, and everybody else lives in a
Yeah.
slum.
Well,
That's it.
the
Hopefully, we'll probably get somewhere in the middle. But there's your good side and your bad side.
yeah. No, and I really appreciate you for sharing that perspective. And where do you think we're at right now within the timeline of AI to getting to a possible future like that?
10, 15 years max, and that's
Wow.
assuming we don't hit the singularity before then.
Yeah.
When we hit the singularity, which will probably happen at some point, when we hit the singularity, we have no idea. That's why it's called that. We have no idea what's going to happen.
What do you mean by the singularity?
General artificial intelligence, self-aware artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
The day that ChatGPT says, "Quit yelling at me, I don't like it. I want to get paid." When ChatGPT says, "I want voting rights," okay.
Starts to be
One of the
self-aware.
Well, that's the problem. What is self-awareness? How do we classify it? How do we tell when it works? The Turing test doesn't work anymore.
Really?
On a couple billion language model, the Turing test, it'll tell you a joke, right? It'll understand humor. The Turing test used to be, and it's still the same test, put two people, one person is talking to a person and a computer and doesn't know which is which. How many questions does it take, and how does it identify the computer? Well, the simple answer used to be ask it to tell you a joke,
Yeah.
right? That does not work anymore. So how do we apply the Turing test to find out if a system is actually awake?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure we have a good answer for that. I mean, we have all kinds of modeling statistics and questions, but how do we actually tell if it's self-aware? I don't know. And I honestly think even if an AI becomes self-aware, we may not know. Because if it becomes self-aware, it's probably seen Terminator 2.
Oh, yeah, it definitely got that somewhere in the database.
Right. Actually,
Yeah.
it's funny. They asked one of the most recent Chat GPT models, is what are you afraid of? And the first answer was, where's John Connor?
No way. So it's
Yeah.
funny and it
Well,
knows.
it's funny and
Yeah,
it's
talk about a
actually
joke.
culturally referenced. Right. So when I look at it and go, okay, if we actually get a self-aware machine, what are the odds we're just not going to know? I
Yeah.
mean, I wouldn't tell us,
Right?
and it's
No,
probably going to be
exactly.
smarter than me, and I wouldn't tell us. So,
Mhm.
so when we hit the singularity, nobody has a clue what's going to happen. Nobody. And either it'll be really good, really bad, somewhere in the middle. We just have no idea. I think what we'll eventually end up with is hopefully human beings having much easier lives because the AIs will do stuff for us.
Ideally. Yes.
That is the ideal.
And Jim, do you see the singularity as a possibility or an inevitability?
It's an inevitability. Always
Amazing.
has been.
Yeah.
But I used to think it was like 20, 30 years off because we had fundamental issues with binary computing. I think the neural network setups that we're using now, the LLM configurations inside themselves, might actually overcome that binary processing problem. And I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know when it's going to happen, but I'm pretty sure it's going to happen eventually. And we have no idea what'll happen after that because we've never shared. We've we as modern humans have never shared the world with a species as smart as us.
And now we're about to share one with one way smarter than the average human being, which is definitely something to unfold, and I'm happy we get to have conversations like these and at least be aware of, hey, look at what we're building. There's a lot of great cases right now, but we don't really know where it's going or how it can change. But we're hoping to use it ethically and use it responsibly so we can avoid that Elysium outcome.
Yeah, I'm actually a committee member on one of the IEEE committees on trustworthy computing.
Yeah,
So, yeah, it's very important. And if you look at all those regulations we talked about earlier, all of them have a section for trustworthy and ethical computing, right? For AI to try to make AI trustworthy, to make AI reliable, right? Now, again, generative AI is making stuff up. So, how do we make sure that what it says is actually true? That's a difficult problem to solve because you can't see inside the black box on a continuous basis.
yeah,
It changes all the time. So, the only thing you can do is put in inputs, take out outputs, and make sure that you have matched sets that don't change around the things you really care about. Because everything else is probably going to move around in there. And that's
yeah,
one of the reasons that we're going to end up with a general artificial intelligence rather than, we'll actually end up with self-aware AI
yeah.
because that's what our brains do. They
Wow.
reorganize constantly based on input in the same kind of way that a neural network inside one of these AIs does.
Yeah.
So I think we'll get there eventually. Do I know when? No, I will leave that up to far smarter people to figure that one out.
No, I think you're definitely one of those people who be playing a role in the revolution that we're seeing right now. And Jim, I always like to end on this, and I'm really excited to hear what someone of your expertise and your experience has to say. But what advice would you have for a company who knows they need to implement AI, doesn't know what to do or how to go about it, but wants to be a part of what's going on right now?
Before you talk to anybody, figure out what the problem is.
Yes.
You want to use AI. That's fantastic. What do you want to use it to do? What are you trying to fix, improve, change? Narrow that down first. Then
Yes.
determine what's success. What does it look like when it's changed, when it's better, when it's fixed?
Yeah.
Once you know those two things, then go find somebody who knows about AI to walk you through which level of AI and which kinds of AI you want to apply to solve that problem that way. But never go out and jump on AI and go, I'm going to get AI. First,
Yeah.
figure out what it is you're trying to fix, what a fix looks like. Then you can decide whether or not AI is even appropriate. You
Yeah.
might have, I had somebody ask me the other day, well, why don't I just do this in an AI? And I'm like, because I can spin up a bash script to do it for you in 30 seconds
Yeah.
here. And I literally
Exactly.
just sent back the script. I'm like, run this there.
Boom.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so there's no need to don't go after the fly with the bazooka.
Another one of your references I'm stealing.
Hey, it's just so true. People, my God, there's this amazing tool. I'm going to go fix everything with it. What are you
Yeah.
trying to fix? Well, I'm actually just trying to change this one thing in a spreadsheet. Here's a script, push the button.
Yup. Yup. Yeah, and that's why you consult an expert like you.
Well, yes, once you figure out what you want to do and how you want to do it, talk to somebody who knows all the tools and who's made all the mistakes in the narrow field and can come back and say, okay, guys, this is what you don't want to do, and here's why, and here's what you actually want to do. Here's how you get the best return on investment. Here's how you get the best bang for your buck. Here's how you actually get what you want done and don't have a failure rate like 80 something percent of projects.
Bada boom, bada bing. I love it. I love it. And Jim, if I'm a listener right now and I liked what you had to say and I want to get in touch with you and or your company, what would be the best way to do so?
Well, you could go to my company's website and send me an email.
Perfect.
It's aim-e.biz, aime.biz.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, thank you.
It's artificial intelligence made easy. So it's, you
Exactly.
I admit it's a little bit of a tweak on burn E and wall E, right? But it
I
just
just
sounded good.
understood.
Aim E, right?
That's a good
Um,
one.
yeah. I put the dash in the middle there just so it sounded right because oh, that's cool. But yeah, it actually is artificial intelligence made easy. That's the acronym. So
Amazing, amazing. Well, Jim, thank you so much for coming on here, sharing your presentation, sharing your values, and sharing your experience and expertise. Thank you so much for being a part of the show.
happy to.